afternoon. We are back to the study of the Spirit's book. We are on chapter 3 of book 3, which is moral laws. The law of labor. We started last week on necessity of labor, which is the first item, and we have 2 questions left before we finish. So we talked about the necessity of labor and the concept of labor, of work, being anything useful that we do to help us progress morally and intellectually, not necessarily work for remuneration. Working for remuneration is important to help us take care of our life, our business, but anything useful that we do to help us progress, to help ourselves and those around us is labor, is work. Okay? Philip, can you read for us? 680.
We're going back to 80. Are there individuals who are incapable of working and whose existence is extremely useless? Sorry?
Entirely useless.
Entirely. So I can't read. God is fair. God only condemns those who are voluntarily useless, because such an individual lives off the labor of others. God wants every person to make themselves useful according to their own abilities.
Okay, so when we talk about God condemns, we have to go back and understand that the natural laws are perfect, created by God. So there is no condemnation by God in the sense that God is not judging us. It's just our behavior according to the natural laws. If we deviate from the natural laws, we are creating karma and causing consequences that are difficult for us. If we align ourselves to the natural law, we are creating positive consequences and helping our progress. So the concept here is those that are not doing anything because they are lazy, because they want to live off the labor of others, those are creating issues for themselves. Those that are unable to work, are incapable of working due to their own physical, mental limitations, they are not incurring any problems. But we spoke last week about Steve Hawkins, right? Completely unable to do anything physically, but able to work with his mind and create something. Of course, he's the exception. Not all people, not many people that don't have the abilities like he didn't have, physical abilities, are able to create the work that he did. But he is the proof that something is always possible, right? Even if you are unable to work, to use your body, physical body, to do something, your mind can do something always. Now, if you are mentally challenged, then of course it's a challenge in this physical life that is either a consequence of something from the past or as an opportunity for those around you to learn something, to help you. Some spirits, evolved spirits, choose a life of being mentally or physically challenged to give us an opportunity for those that take care of them to learn how to love, to learn compassion, to learn how to care. It's the exception, but it happens. So we cannot judge and look at someone that is mentally or physically challenged and immediately reach the conclusion that they are paying for some debt or mistakes from the past. It may not be it, right? And so we shouldn't judge. But the concept here is God wants every person to make themselves useful according to their own ability. So any ability that we all have abilities, we should try to use our abilities to help our own progress, and by helping others around us, we are helping ourselves. Okay? Okay? 681.
Very good. Does natural law impose an obligation upon children to work for their parents? Of course, just as it imposes on parents the duty of working for their children. For this reason, God has created filial and parental affection. Oh boy. Sorry about that interruption.
No problem. So that family members,
I'm looking to, so that family members may be naturally led to mutually help each other, a duty that is too often lost in the world today.
okay. So, of course, it's our responsibility to take care of those around us. So it is our moral responsibility to take care of our parents that gave us an opportunity of a new incarnation. It is the moral responsibility of parents to educate their children and to raise them properly. The limitations of that is our own limitations. We are imperfect spirits. And also the side receiving, especially parents, right? So you are mistreated by your father or mother your whole life. They never took care about you. You have a moral responsibility towards them, yes, but it's limited to your ability to raise above yourself to help them, and the ability of them to accept any help, right? And understanding that the help cannot be them taking advantage of you, right? Now, parents with young children, it's their responsibility to raise young children, educate them. It's not, even if the child, it's difficult, even more the parents are responsible to take care of them and educate them. But when it comes to children taking care of their parents when they are old, yes, we have the moral obligation. We are here together for a reason. Maybe we will only understand the reason when we go back to the spiritual world. So difficult relationships are part of our journey. It could be with our parents, it could be with siblings, it could be with aunts, uncles, friends, but they are all part of our need to grow and to evolve. So if we think of this in terms of remove the concept of children and parents and family, we only evolve by helping others. Without charity, there is no salvation, right? That's the basic motto of Spiritism. Now, this charity should be directed first to those close to us. That's our responsibility. But sometimes it's not possible. If it's not possible, then we move to the next layer, right? Friends, cousins, not so distant family, work colleagues. We need to be helpful to others. That's our responsibility. Our moral responsibility is to take care of our children and our parents to the best of our abilities. And here is, to the best of our abilities. The best of our abilities goes as far as, are we doing the best that we can in terms of helping them without causing harm to ourselves? Because sometimes to be close to a parent there is very difficult, and we don't have the ability to deal with them because of our own limitations, also because we cannot deal with them. Then sometimes it's better to move away because it's better for both. And eventually we will have to be reunited, but it doesn't need to be this incarnation. Can be on a next one, right? So yes, it's a responsibility, but it's a responsibility limited by our ability to do it. We have to make an effort, right? But it's sometimes we hear people talking when you learn about marriage, for instance, in Spiritism, right? That some Spiritists question, oh, I have a terrible marriage, but if I get separated, I'm just postponing the problem. No, not necessarily, right? Maybe you are, maybe not, because if the marriage is making you so miserable that you cannot lead a normal life, it's causing you harm physically or mentally that is preventing you from living a normal life, then the alternative is always better, right? Of course, you have to try to do your best to preserve the relationships. Could be husbands, siblings, but it doesn't depend only on you, right? It's a two-way street always. So it's important for us to understand the limitations of this two-way street. You cannot become victim, and you cannot do more than what the other person is willing to receive. If they, if they don't want to be with you, they don't want to see you, they don't want to hear from you, it's their problem, and they will have to deal with it, right? We cannot force ourselves onto those that are not interested in being with us. Okay? All right? Questions, comments? Yes, Danny.
So this question is very broad, right? Because I think culturally this could be interpreted in so many ways. Like there are some cultures that see that their children almost become their parents when they grow up, and the parents they give in, like they let it go, so they become I'm making air quotation marks here, kids or children, right? And some cultures it's more balanced, and other cultures are that doesn't happen, like barely. So I know this is the ideal, and I heard what you were saying, but it's very open to interpretation. I wonder if the spirits were considering that, like, okay, do your best according to where you were growing up or where you're born at the moment.
Yes, always, yes. Of course, you live, you were raised in a way, and you have to follow the laws and the custom, the ways of where you were raised, but it doesn't. The moral obligation to take care of those that raised you, it's there. It's for everybody. Now, how you adjust to that, depending on where you live, how you were raised, how the other part receives it, because some parents don't want to be, they don't want to have their children interfering in their lives too much. They want to be, it's not left alone, because parents always want to have children around the majority of the cases, right? Not always. But some parents are bothered by children that want to interfere too much in their lives, right? So it's a two-way street always, right? It is our moral obligation to do the best we can to take care of those that were responsible for us, that raised us. Doesn't necessarily mean parents. It could be some people that have adopted parents, uncles, aunts, grandparents. It's our moral obligation to take care of them. Yes, this is the natural law. Now, we are imperfect spirits, so this goes according to our own limitations and their own limitations, right? Because we talk here about the ideal. Ideally, everyone would take good care of their parents. That's the ideal situation. That's where we are going to get when we become more evolved spirits. But at the present, we can only do the best that we can. Our conscience is going to ask us, did you do the best that you could? And if you didn't, then guilt comes, right? And then you start blaming yourself, and then you need to make corrections. So if you have a clean conscience, you try the best that you could. It's the same thing that in the Gospel according to Spiritism, when they talk about educating children, right? You try to educate your children the best that you can. Now, they are eternal spirits. They are old spirits. They bring their own imperfections. If you cannot change who they are, and if you did the best that you can, and they end up not progressing that much, you have to have a clean conscience, right? Parents will always feel guilty. Parents will always feel that they could have done more. And, the reality is we have our own limitations. When we look back, we are always going to think that we could have done more. But we have to be charitable with ourselves, understanding that we are imperfect spirits and we have limitations. We have our own imperfections. And sometimes we are going to, if we try too hard, we're going to end up hurting ourselves. That we cannot run that risk in many different ways, mentally, physically, right? Okay.
And also, it's easy to say when you are out of that circumstance.
Yes.
Or the context. So like 10 years later, you're older, you're in a different situation, and then you look back and oh my God, but it's not the same period of time, the same age, the same whatever is going on. So, but it's very common to look back, I think both ways, parents to kids and grown-up kids to their older parents with a lot of guilt.
Yeah, one thing that you hear a lot is those that have parents that are starting to develop either dementia or Alzheimer, right? And it becomes very hard to have them at home or to take care of them, right? But they feel guilty to place them in cares, in external cares. But again, we have to think about our own health. Our responsibility is for us to be mentally healthy, right? Sometimes it's better for us to take care of a parent that is in a place that has 24/7 care, instead of leaving them at our homes and making our life miserable and their life miserable, right? Because they may suffer more if they are at our home than if they are in an institution that takes good care. Again, each case is a case, but we have to balance our responsibility with our mental health. That's very important.
Let me say, I don't know. It's like like you. I have my issues with this too, because okay, I do understand the fact that parents are definitely responsible for the children. I have no question for that. But I've seen many parents that say, I want the best for my children. I want them out of the house and as independent as possible first. So they want them out. They help them to move out because they want them independent. And on top of that, is their belief. In my old age, they have their own lives to live with their husbands, with their children. I don't want them here in my house. And that's why they got long-term care insurance. So this, from the first part, taking care of children, I kind of, no doubt about it. But the second part, that children have an obligation with the parents, I question that, because then it seems to me that the parents in their old age are becoming the life insurance of the children.
Oh, yes.
And then you say, if they have life insurance, they got long-term care. That
The,
doesn't mean they have to detach completely, but let's face it, I have a child who gets married, he's got 3 kids, he's got a wife, they are probably both working. I don't want them in my life. I want them to see them every so often, see my grandchildren, but they got their own problems.
yeah, it's
So that's my, and I do believe this is very, like you said it before, it's cultural, it's very cultural, very traditional, different perspectives. And I by the way, I kind of agree. I see their point. I see their point in terms of getting them out of the house and not bothering them when they're grown up with their own children.
but depending on the culture, you have, like Daniela said, in the Greek culture, the parents, they build a house, then they build the second floor for the son when he gets married, so he's going to live on the second floor, and the third floor the other son, and they all stay together. It's expected, right?
It's expected, yes. These people in what's Pennsylvania? What are they? The
Mormons?
Not the Mormons. No,
Not the Mormons.
that's in Utah.
Oh, the Amish. The
Huh?
Amish? The Amish?
Exactly.
maybe?
They build houses next to each other, like expanding the houses.
Yes.
Again,
What the spirits are saying here is that we have moral responsibility to take care of our parents, but there is a lot of ifs and buts on this, because it depends on where you are, the culture, depends on your parents. What you cannot do is ignore them if they need your help, right? Need your help in a sense that if all the situation is normal, of course they mistreated you your whole life and then they need your help when they're old, it's difficult. But let's say everything is normal parents, normal issues, and then they need your help when they're old, is your moral responsibility to help them.
Yeah.
But
I had a personal experience. I remember that when I was 20, I was still, well, not with my parents, but I was, with my uncle, my aunt, things like that. And I met someone, and he was also 20 and had his own apartment. And he said, how did my parents help me out? He said, my parents helped me out because they wanted me out of the house. It's cultural to me. That I didn't say a word, but what's shocking, how could a parent be kicking him out? But now I see the point that the parents really wanted him to go out into the world and become independent, develop roots. So I kind of, that's what I'm saying. It's a very cultural thing too.
Yeah, it's difficult, but each case is a case, and we have to talk about the general concept here, right? The general concept is that we are responsible to help those around us to a certain point, and that can be parents, children, or siblings, or anyone. But with the limitation, our own limitations and their limitations. Okay. All right. Now let's rest. Limit of labor.
Quite an interesting point. You know that? Very good. Thank you.
682.
Yes.
As rest after labor is a necessity, is it a law of nature? Definitely. Rest restores the bodily powers and is also necessary to give a little more freedom to the mind, allowing it to rise above matter.
Okay, here we're talking about the physical body in this incarnation. We're not talking about the spirit in the spiritual world. Our physical body needs rest. Why? Because the ideal is for our physical body to be fully functional so we can help others and not be a burden to others, right? If your physical body is sick, someone is taking care of us, and we cannot perform our activities. For this, rest is important. That's why it's a law of nature, because our physical body needs rest. And again, for each person is different. Some people can sleep 4 hours and everything is perfect. Some people need 7 hours sleep, or sometimes different times, right? It is according to each person, but what they are talking here, the spirits is, of course, in the time of Kardec, the workaholic didn't exist, right? But they are talking about the workaholics here, right? Because when you are a workaholic, you are damaging your physical body, you're damaging your mental state, and you are causing harm to those around us because you're not taking care of them or not dedicating time to them. So all of this is what the spirits are trying to tell us, the importance of rest here for the physical body and also for our mental health also. Okay.
683.
Yeah.
What limits labor? It is limited by strength, but God gives human beings the freedom to decide this point for themselves.
There you go, right? It's limited by strength, but we have the free will to decide when it is time for us to rest. And of course, because we are imperfect spirits, we are going to make wrong choices. We're going to work too much sometimes or be too lazy other times when we should be working. But we need to find the balance, and we need to find the right approach to work. And here, let's go back to the concept of work as a general concept of doing something that is useful to ourselves and to others. Of course, at the time of Kardec, most of the labor was physical labor, right? It was the beginning of the industrialization. We were coming out of agricultural culture to enter into the state of industrialization, where you had at that time children working, and you have people working 16 hours a day, forced to work, and that's what we're going to address in the next question. So all these things got regulated later. Nowadays, we have laws, right? So we have laws paying extra hours, we have laws limiting the amount of time we work, but this keeps changing because nowadays with our mobile phones that we carry work wherever we go, we can be working 24/7, right? So it's on us to put limits on our workload, because when you work in a factory that you work from 9 to 5 and then you leave and it's over, you go back next day, it's very easy. But when you work on a function that you may work from home, you may work on when you're traveling, you may work on vacation, and a lot of people nowadays work during their vacations, right? It's on us to make the choices, but this is part of it's the law of progress. We are able to have more access to our work because we can make better choices for ourselves without imposition from external impositions, which before was a little bit less clear. So everything is progressive, and with progress comes mistakes, errors that we are going to make, and then we are going to correct as we move on. Okay.
684.
Yeah.
What should we think of those who abuse their authority by imposing too much labor on their subordinates? They commit one of the worst of crimes. All those exercising authority shall answer for any excess labor imposed by them on those who are under their orders, because they violate God's law.
Yeah, if we look at this question and we think at the time of Kardec, people were working in factories 12, 14 hours a day, 16 hours a day. So they were being imposed too much labor, and they had no other option than to work, because otherwise there was no jobs, they couldn't provide for their families. So we see these movies from the 19th century, right? In factories, people working, even children working there. Of course, when you abuse your power to cause harm to others, you are doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing, which is to help and assist others for your own progress. So you are creating consequences for yourself. So what can happen to these people? They will come in a following incarnation, having to work in very difficult conditions to face the other side of the coin. Whatever they did to others, they are going to have to face, and they have to probably work very difficult jobs that demand a lot of effort and without much reward, because they abused their power. This can be one of the consequences, but everyone that abuses their power, it applies. It can be extended to anyone that abuse their position to take advantage of others. They are committing crimes that are going to be causing their consequences on their path, right? It's law of cause and consequence, action and reaction. Okay.
685. Do human beings have the right to rest in old age? Yes, they are only required to work according to their strength. Then what are the resources for old people who need to work for a living but cannot? The strong should work for the weak. When the family does not help, society should take its place. This is the law of charity. It is not enough to say that human beings need to work. They also should be able to find an occupation. This is not what happens. Whenever unemployment becomes widespread, it assumes the proportions of a scourge like scarcity. Economic science seeks a remedy for this problem in balancing production and compensation. But this balance is always subject to sporadic periods. Assume that it can be attained, and the worker must survive during these periods. There is one element of the question that has not been considered sufficiently, and economics is just a theory without education. Not merely intellectual education, but moral education. That which consists in the formation of character and habits, which human beings do not learn from books. Education is the sum of the habits acquired. When we consider that many individuals are lost in the flood of a population without principles or direction and are left to their own instincts on a daily basis, should we be surprised by the disastrous consequences that result? When the art of education is properly understood and practiced, all human beings will have the habits of stability and prudence for themselves and for those who depend on them, and respect for what is worthy of respect. These habits will enable them to endure hard times with greater ease. Chaos and extravagance are social handicaps that only proper education can cure, and the spread of such education is the preliminary element for social well-being, which is the only guarantee of security for all.
Okay. So the question here is about old age, right? That Kardec asks. Remember, Social Security didn't exist at the time of Kardec. It was being created. It was there were some basic rights, but very little. So most people would have to work until they die because they couldn't afford to retire. What the spirits are telling us here, right, is that society has to take care of those that cannot work because of old age. So the spirits are already telling us here in 1857 the seeds of what later it would become Social Security that most countries have nowadays. Of course, some better than others. Some provide more resources for old people. Others still not much. But the concept here is the strong should work for the weak, in terms of the youth should be able to work to help the ones that cannot work. Of course, we read all about the problems that Social Security is having because we're getting older and older, we're retiring too early, and all those things, right? But these are all problems that were created because of the necessity of providing for the ones that cannot work at an older age. Of course, when this started, 65 years old, or 60 or 65 was old enough not to work any longer. Nowadays, most people at this age of 60, 65 can still work and still be productive, but to change the laws, there is always the interests and it's very hard, right? But the concept here is that a just, a fair society will provide for those that cannot work. And then Kardec goes on his explanation here, and this is an explanation that has more to do with education than with helping the older ones, right? Because Kardec, again, he was an educator to start with. Before he started working on Spiritism, he worked as a professor. He taught different subjects in France. He wrote a series of books on education. Some of them are still used today. His methods still used today in the French education system. So by heart, he's an educator. So when he talks about education, he talks knowing what he's talking about. So he says here that the intellectual education, it's not enough. The moral education, the formation of characters and habits, that we cannot learn from books, is what really matters. Education is the sum of the habits acquired. This is a very important concept that Kardec brings to us, that when we achieve a better level of education, all these things will come more naturally, right? The ability to be productive in terms of with your knowledge, the ability to help others because of your moral evolvement, right? To help others not because it is an obligation, but because it's part of who you are. It comes naturally for you. We're not there yet. We still have some way to go. But the concept that we have to understand is that the education starts with learning and then putting into practice, internalize what we have learned until, the sum of habits until it becomes part of who we are. You know, you practice charity not because you need to, but because it's second nature to you, right? Like Mother Teresa, when we mentioned many times. And that's what Kardec is telling us here. When the art of the education is properly understood and practiced, all human beings will have the habits of stability and prudence from themselves and for those who depend on them. It applies to families, nations, everything. 150 years later, we are much better. 170 years later, we're much better, but still far away from any level of perfection, very far away from it. But and when we discussed last week, right, about the difficulty of educating children nowadays, right? Danny was mentioning it. So you know, it's always a challenge because things keep changing and we need to adapt. And of course, a new generation comes with new ideas, new habits, and we need to educate them. And we carry still old ideas and old habits, and there is a clash, and there is the challenges that we need to learn and overcome. It's not easy, but it's a learning challenge, right? We are going to progress from learning and from, because as we are educating others, we are educating ourselves, and we are progressing. Okay, this was law of labor. We're going to start now law of reproduction, which is chapter 4. Population of the globe, 686.
686. Is the reproduction of living beings a natural law? Of course. The physical world would die without reproduction. Again,
when we talk about reproduction, our immediate thought is about our, as human beings producing children. But reproduction, animals reproduce, plants reproduce, right? So it's something all living beings reproduce. So that's the natural law. That's part of the natural law, because without reproduction, everything ends, right? Mm-hmm. Our physical life ends. The plants will all die. There will be no plants. If there is no plants, there is no life in the planet, right? So it is a natural law. The physical world will die without reproduction in all the different aspects, right? So that's obviously a natural law. Now, the next question is interesting because we can go over for a long time. Let's go.
687. If the global population continues to grow as it has up until now, will it become too large over the course of time? No. God always maintains a balance and does not make allowances for anything useless. The human species sees only a small corner of the universe, and as such, it is unable to recognize the harmony of the whole.
Yeah, so we have to think here about the human population, the population of spirits around the globe, and the population of spirits in the universe, right? So, Earth is our home, temporary home. When we are incarnated and when we are discarnated, we live around Earth. But it's not our eternal home, right? The spirit lives eternally. We know that Earth will going to end one day, right? Some people say 3 billion, 5 billion years. The sun will explode eventually and will destroy everything. But we, the spirits, will continue to live. So that's one thing. Now, when we come to the planet Earth, which is what Kardec was asking here, right? we have to remember when he asked this question, the population of the globe was probably around 1 billion or a little more than 1 billion people, if I'm not mistaken. And now we are at 8, right? At the end of the 19th century, they thought that people would die of starvation because not enough food would be produced to feed all the population that was growing geometrically, and food production was not growing geometrically. And then we continue developing foods, and nowadays we have more food than we need. We have a bad distribution system. That's why people still hunger and die of hunger. But it's not for lack of food. It's for lack of efficient distribution, right? You work at the United Nations, you know all these issues, right? Now, so the question is 8 billion enough? Because the population is growing, but it's growing to a level that will stop growing. When it will stop growing? When we have enough people here that we are using the resources in an optimized way, right? We don't know yet when, but what we know is there are 3 times more spirits in the spiritual world around Earth. So the population of Earth with incarnated and discarnated spirits, it's said to be between 25 and 30 billion spirits, of which 8 billion are incarnated, right? So still, we can continue growing the population because we have the ability and we have space for more. We tend to look at it at our very limited view of living in this planet, in this incarnation. If we remove ourselves from the present incarnation and we start looking at ourselves as eternal spirits, it doesn't really matter if Earth exists or doesn't exist, if it's superpopulated or not superpopulated, because we are eternal spirits. So if Earth ceases to exist, we're just moving to a different planet, right? If we are the cause of this destruction, that will be our responsibility. We as humans, the 30 billion here, if we destroy the planet, we'll be responsible for it. Not all 30 billion, but those that some more than others. But one thing is guaranteed: life continues. We are eternal spirits. So this question should be looked in the sense of, the reality that we're facing nowadays. It's population is growing according to the needs. We need to continue reproducing because Earth is important. It's our planet. We need to take care of it. We need to do the best we can for it to continue serving as our place to live, because we want to come back here. We need to come back here. But we are eternal spirits, so we will continue living regardless of where we go. Okay?
Succession and Development of the Human Race, 688. There are groups of humans today that are rapidly vanishing from the face of the earth. Will they eventually disappear? Yes, but this will only happen because, excuse me, others will have taken their place, just as you will also one day be replaced by others.
Yeah, here we're talking about the physical body, right? If we see the evolution, right, that our physical body evolves from the ancestors that was a race that then divided in the apes and the humans and all. So this is the evolution of the physical body. So if the physical body has been evolving for millions and millions of years, the logical conclusion is it will continue to evolve. Of course, the physical body in 1 million years is going to be different from the physical body we have today. How? We don't know. So the the groups of humans, as they said today, they are disappearing from the face of Earth. They are becoming extinct. It's not the spirits. It's the physical body that is being extinct. So, and the physical body is like a cloth. If once it becomes useless, we give it away, or we, throw away, right? So we have to understand, separate the spirit from the physical body. The spirit didn't come from what you see, the evolution of the species. We incarnated here on Earth already as an individual spirit with a physical body that is somewhat similar to what we have today. Primitive spirits that incarnated here on Earth in the very beginning have evolved, and some of them are here, some of them moved to the other planet. So the important thing here is for us to separate the physical body from the spirit, right? We eternal spirits and our physical body. So when people say, oh, we descend from apes, we, the spirit, don't. Our physical body does. Yes, so two separate things. Okay.
689.
Sorry, just a second. Yes.
The discussion around the world of regeneration and how spirits that will incarnate or will stay here or will stay behind or different world. It's a different story.
Yes, but as we are moving into a world of regeneration, the physical body will have a better quality, right? Because we are advancing in science, advancing in taking good care of it. So we are going to reincarnate. If when Earth becomes a world of regeneration, that it is, if we come back to Earth, and we should, theoretically in 500 years' time, our physical body is not going to be much different from what we are today, but it will have better quality for sure, right? If you go back 500 years, we were shorter. We were, we had other limitations of our physical body. For instance, we have the appendix, right? Nobody knows what it is for. Something that was useful in the past is still here, right? So this is the sort of things that as we evolve, we are going to improve the physical body. But this is something that happens on thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years, right? So it's not 500 years. It's not, our next incarnation, our physical body is going to be very similar to what we have today. But if we look at 1,000,000 years from now, which we are still, if we haven't destroyed Earth, we shouldn't, our physical body is probably going to be much more efficient than what we have today, right? Less diseases or less necessities, but we don't know. We can only guess, right? Okay. I think we should stop here. Let's leave this subject for next week. We come back to this question and we start again, right? Because I think then we are going to go to the discussion between physical body and evolutions of human beings, and I think we better look at them all together. And so we come back here next week. Okay. So as I mentioned before, this Saturday we have the U.S. Spiritist Symposium happening in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. The theme of the symposium is the evolution of consciousness, a path towards enlightenment. And you can watch it live. Just go to the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube page, or you go to spiritistsymposium.org and you'll find there the links for the different lectures and different round tables, just to give you an idea of the program. see if we have here the program. Yes. So we have we have talks about the awakening of consciousness, reincarnation as a path for growth. Then a panel on the great spiritual transition. Then a talk about thought and will, the power to change our lives. Then lunch break. Then we have a panel, practical tools for elevating consciousness. This is a panel. Then we have another panel, which I will be part of it, the role of mediumship in expanding consciousness. That's at 1:45 p.m. And then we have the last talk, which is the future of consciousness, challenges, growth, and a brighter future. Okay? You can watch us live, or you can watch later. You have links on the spiritisymposium.org. This Sunday, we are going to study the Medium's book, chapter 10. We're going to start chapter 10 of book 2. The book club is chapter 19 on Wednesday, this coming Wednesday. And I think that's all for us, right? Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, I certainly can. I'm the administrative one now. Anyway, thank you. Infinite Creator and Divine Providence, we give thanks for being together for our studies of the Spirit's book, Book 3, Chapter 3, and the Law of Labor and the Law of Reproduction. The natural laws are perfect. Difficulties arise if we deviate from it. Laziness differs from those who are physically unable to work. Something is always possible using mental abilities or the ability to care, as we use this as an offering. Family members are here to mutually help each other. This is our moral obligation, and at least to try our best to assist. We must be mentally healthy to create a balance. Rest is necessary for the physical body and the mind, so we can be fully functional to help others. We need the right approach to work and to be useful. We need to apply effort as well as free will to make the appropriate choices. Excess labor that is imposed is a true violation of God's law. Moral education matters and is needed as we endeavor to progress. All living beings reproduce, that being plants, animals, as well as humans, in the here and the hereafter. Be good stewards of the earth, at least for now. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirit for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us, and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, our workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace now, and especially for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.